Reading my mind. Okay. Well, the title of today's talk uh, is "Be Thou My Vision," although I misspelled "thou," so that's always good for my for my perfectionist program. "Be Thou My Vision." That was, if you caught the end of it, you came in with the last song. That was Kate Campbell singing "Be Thou My Vision," which is an old Celtic hymn, and it is a vision. Uh, right before that, well, all the way from when I turned it on, we had Quaker Plain Song from Paulette Mara, one of my favorite Quakers. And in between, it was like a sandwich. It was three-part. In between the Quaker and the Celtic, we had Pink Floyd, their great song "Money." Yeah, uh, we're gonna really looking at today vision and the vision of our founders in this country to start with. What was our founders' vision? What did these guys have in mind? And then what are we in danger of losing totally? Now, in the Jewish scriptures and Proverbs, they have a great line. Six, you can boil it down to six words. This line, it's Proverbs 29:18, but it says simply, and this is one of the wisdom books of the Jewish faith. Without a vision, the people perish. Simple as that. Without a vision, the people perish. And there are people perishing, all not just American people. There are people perishing in Port-au-Prince and uh, Sudan, uh, in Congo, all over the world, because this country has it sends out about, well, currently this year we're supposed to send out $40 billion in aid, food, uh, medicine, infrastructure building. It's which is about 50% of what the whole world gives. We were doing 40%. That's all been stopped now, as you probably know. And what are the ripples of that? Yeah. So without a vision, the people perish. So I want to really look into the vision of our founders in this country and why it was actually remarkable, and and also how does that relate to what we're doing here, to what we're doing in our own hearts. So the United States was the first nation in the planet that was founded on the vision of reason. This was the late 18th century, and Jefferson and Madison and Franklin and all those guys are getting together. They were, you know, children of the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason, and they finally just said, "I don't think we need a monarch." It wasn't just the price of tea and all that. We just said human beings using reason should be able to govern themselves. And if you've been in the previous talks where we talked about, there's a couple of pre-rational states of consciousness, and it's actually quite a leap to get to the rational stage where you're actually running your life based on reason. Well, these guys are ready to try that. They risked their lives to rebel against the empire at the time, one of the big empires, the English empire and the English king. So the United States was the first country founded on the belief that human beings possess the ability to govern themselves with reason. The second was France. Bravo à la France. Well, these were the first two. But I want to look at our country here, and it mirrors the same thing that has gone on in France as well. Well, these guys, Jefferson, uh, uh, Franklin, all the guys who were the founders, John Hancock, most of these guys were what were called deists. And if you want to know, I'm not going to be able to go into all the background because I'm really setting up for what we're doing here. Why are we here? But just a little bit. Most of the founders of the United States were deists. They believed in a creator, but not the God of the Bible. They didn't believe, for instance, in the fall in the Garden of Eden. They didn't believe in that. They didn't believe that humanity was ever separated from God. It's a kind of radical monotheism that came in, with science and with reason. This was their belief. There's a creator, and there's more to it. If you get the notes, I've got links to where you can find out more about DS if you want to. If you know any Unitarians, or maybe if you've been in the Unitarian or are in the Unitarian tradition, that's probably the closest American tradition to what these guys believed in. Uh, it was a kind of radical monotheism. And the founders were clear about one thing, which really rings a bell now, is that there would be no state religion. They were really probably one of the first group of guys who were spiritual, but not really religious. And they put it in the Bill of Rights that there could be an establishment of no state religion. I turned the road and head for I-65. There's a church across the road there, and it has a white Christian nationalist flag. They want to make this a white Christian nation, these guys who have control of the government now. That's lost the vision entirely. These guys, most of these guys were just a generation away from people fleeing the Church of England and the oppression of people who had any kind of other views. So that was big as part of they definitely put in there will be no state religion, no establishment of religion. Well, they're trying to do that. Something in that vision is lost. Of all of the freedom we're supposed to have, you have the freedom based on the founding vision. You have the freedom to be an atheist, the freedom to be an agnostic, to be a polytheist, you can be a monotheist, or you could be a mystic. Those really, by the way, are the five options. Everybody relates to this idea of an ultimate reality, call it God or spirit. Everybody, everything falls within those five options as far as I can tell. There is no God. I don't know if there's a God or not. I think there's many gods. The nature religions tend that way. I think there's only one God. It's my kind of God, by the way. And then mystics are different, and we're actually training in mysticism here. Mystics believe there's only God, and we'll sort of tease that out towards the end. So definitely no God. I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. There's many gods, and then there's just one God, the one I believe in. That's the dangerous part. And then, mystics think there's only God. What does that mean? Well, they were leaning into it. I'm not a deist. I mean, even science itself has shown us the limitation of that view, because they felt God created the world and then God just is on vacation now. He's resting and she's resting, or it was a he then. He's resting, and it's up to us for the rest. And there's some truth in that too. Most of the suffering in this world was not created by the transcendent reality, whatever you want to call it. It's created by human beings who are confused to think that money and greed meant something. Well, the vision of what they called a new order for the ages was captured 6 years after the revolution started in 1782 by the secretary of the Continental Congress. They were trying to get an official logo for this whole thing, and they tried 3-4 times, and the fourth time we got basically what we have now by a guy named Charles Thomson. He was the secretary of the Continental Congress. You can read more about this. I've got some links in here because it's fascinating. I could talk for 2 hours on what's on the back of a dollar bill. The American $1 bill, the one that you have in your possession now, if you even use dollars anymore, everybody's on credit now, credit cards, plastic. But it captures not only the spirit of this, what I call the American spring. It really, I hope we'll have a respringing coming up somewhere in these next 4 years. It not only captured that spirit of the American spring, but also the spirit of human evolution, of the human experience. The front side of the $1 bill. I don't know if you can see this. Let me. The front side is the part of us as human beings that lives in the field of time and space. This is the transactional nature of human beings. We live in time and space, and money is used for these transactions. You see, and it's got Washington on it. It's got it's this basic version of it's been in since I think '71. But there was a lot of changes over the years. But it basically says, yeah, we live in a transactional world. That's why money is so helpful. It's why actually digital stuff is even more helpful. I don't have to send 40,000 of these down to Haiti. Uh, we can transfer it by light in from one bank account to another. So even coins and bills are getting to be passe. But this is about that part of our life, the field of time and space where everything comes and goes, just as this money comes and goes. Now, the backside is different. It represents our transformational nature, the part of our lives that live in the field of eternity. And these are simultaneously, we're living in the field of time and space, and then also in the field of eternity. Which is why it's expressed on the backside in mystical symbols that made sense to our founders. I'm going to bring up the screensaver here. Just in a minute. It's off. And you can get a close-up of the backside or most of the backside. And you can also see that I forgot how to spell thou. All right, when you look at this now, it's called the Great Seal, in the two parts of the Great Seal here. And in between, what you're missing in between, because I wanted to give you more of a close-up view, what you're missing in between is a space, not all this filigree and stuff, there's a space, and it says, "In God we trust," and it's got a 1 in big letters. Okay, so that's what you're missing by the looking at it. And again, looking at this at the back of a $1 bill, you can spend a long time in the symbolic numbers they're using for, but really the short form is the two magic numbers on the back side of your $1 bill is 13 and 1, and you'll find them everywhere. 13 was for the deists an idea of, well, the Last Supper. There was the 12 apostles and Jesus, so 13 meant a kind of renewal. In other words, in the world of space and time, you can constantly renew it. We've worked with this with the mandala and everything else. And the 1 meant a kind of stability. It's about that thing that doesn't change. And so they go back and forth. Those 13 stars above the bald eagle. Actually, if you look at those stars real closely, it's the Jewish symbol of the Star of David. These guys were deep into it. I'm not going to go into all of it. The arrows and the leaves on the olive branch that the eagle's holding, 13 in each. And notice how the eagle's looking. And this is all really, these guys were deep into it. The eagle's looking towards the olive branch. In other words, they were looking away from these foreign wars. They didn't want to get involved with all these empires. They just want to live in peace. So a lot of things, even e pluribus unum, that's on that little like ribbon by the eagle, bald eagle, by the way, our eagle. It means from the many one. E pluribus unum, from the many one. And if you really freak out when you realize it's 13 letters there. 13 letters. It goes on and on. I'm not going to go, you can explore this. There'll be a link that you could explore because there's a lot more. It's like you look at the pyramid on the left where we're really going to look at, there's 13 things and then the eye, and we're going to look at the eye. Yeah. because that's really the thing I want to focus on. It's sometimes called the radiant eye of God. That's on top of the on top of the pyramid. The the Masons, and some of these guys were deists and Masons. So the Masons were really into Egypt, and so the pyramid there is Egypt was sort of flat, and the pyramids was like high point. And so all the bottom row, by the way, it's a declaration, the date of the Declaration of Independence, 1776, in Roman numerals. But the bottom row, there's many, and as it goes up, all the many become one in the radiant eye of God. So what are they talking about here? And then how does it relate to our work here? This is my take on it. The consciousness of human beings cleansed of the transactional, the temporal concerns. And that's really what we do when we drop from the rational mind into what contemplative people in a lot of traditions is called the heart. That heart would be, the what's called the eye of the heart in a lot of traditions. Okay, but you have to be cleansed of the transactional temporal concerns. You can behold with the radiance of a cleansed mirror uh, the way spirit, the way God, the way the ultimate sees, and the way the ultimate or the spirit or God is. You can actually behold that. And it's a trans-rational, transformative, holistic, mystical vision. These guys they had vision far beyond just putting together a different kind of government. They had the idea that this was going to be part of this evolution of consciousness. Okay, so they were deep into it. And so it went far beyond just, how to organize business and stuff like that. They had a hope for that this country and this, we could jump into to following reason to to govern ourselves, but then also that we can make the jump to the transrational, to the transformative. And so that was all in the back of the dollar bill, and there's a lot more there. You can check it out if you're interested. But for us, that was just a springboard. So we can get that off. Were you ever looking at it? Could you see it? I thought so. All right. Get this stuck here. There we are. Okay, so we're talking about vision. If you lose a vision, the people perish. And so, again, their scope went beyond how to run a country. It went to where they thought human beings were going. Okay. And so let's look at just a couple of poems quickly, and then we'll, some but a couple you don't, just to move us into doing the actual practice of dropping out of the transactional consciousness. And the left brain, reason, it's brilliant. I mean, you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, and some of us are thousands of miles away, and it's brilliant. So there's great gift of reason and science and all that. We're reaping that gift right now just by being in this community. It makes something that was impossible 30 years ago, 20 years ago, to be possible now, that we could meet on this Sunday and discuss vision. You go back to Jesus, the Gospel of Thomas. I'm just going to mention just that other people have seen this before the founders. Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, where the two eyes of your head are replaced by the single eye of the heart, you will be full of light. Yeah, that was, he was talking about this dropping down to the one eye. And that's what you're seeing up there in the triangle. You're seeing the one eye. That's a unitive vision. Out of many, one, You could say, well, you're looking at these, 25 squares where you're at. We're all divided. into these 25 squares, but there's another way to look at it. It's the same way that you could look at the shore. You could look at the shore as the division between the land and the sea, or you could look at the shore as what connects the land and the sea. It all depends on your vision. And this was a unitive vision. Jesus had it too. And when you can view things with the eye, the single eye of the heart, you will be full of light. You will be a light bearer. You will be enlightened. Now, about that was 2,000 years ago. Of course, the Buddha said similar things 500 years before that. We're going to go on to that next week in the Dancing with Spirit. We're going to be looking at something very interesting there. But about 700 years ago, in the middle of Germany, in the middle of a mess, I mean, the local Europe was wars, religious wars were going on. In the middle of that, you got a guy like Meister Eckhart who says this: the eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one loving. Imagine that. That's why, Eckhart died. He was being on trial with the Inquisition, which was around now. The Jesuits had this Dominican, and he probably would have become toast, but he died before the end of the trial for statements like this. But he was like 700 years ago, he was seeing this. The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. Now, the deists were sort of onto that. Not quite, but they said there's no separation. This fall thing, the fact that we're, fallen nature and blah, 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 and that we were out of the garden and all that. They didn't buy that, and neither did Eckhart. I mean, he knew the theology of it, but he went beyond it. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one love. Before Bob Marley, there was Eckhart. And then when you get into the early 20th century, you get a guy like Rilke, who was a mystic too. These are all mystics that are talking to you now. We're in training for mystics. Is if you really hang with this, as some of you have for years, that's what we're training to do. We're trained to see only God. Here's Rilke as part of one of his poems. It's in Love Poems to God. He says, I know that nothing has ever been real without my beholding it. All becoming has needed me. My looking ripens things, and they come toward me to meet and be met. It's a lovely verse. I know that nothing has ever been real without my beholding it. All becoming has needed me. My looking ripens things, and they come towards me to meet and be met. The fact that how you behold something can not only ripen what you're looking at, but actually draw it towards you. He's one of the great mystic poets. And then finally, this is just 3 sentences from Joseph Campbell, which it's a kind of poem in itself. He said one time, there is the transcendent, period. There is the transcendent. There's something bigger than all of this. There's something that doesn't come and go. And so he says, there is the transcendent. Know it's there, and then forget about it. I love that part of it. He says, know it's there, and then forget about it. In other words, you don't have to go further in theology. Know it's there, and then forget about it. And then the final sentence is simply behold the radiance everywhere. Now that's a mystic sentence, which Joe certainly was a mystic. There is the transcendent, period. Know it's there, and then forget about it, period. Simply behold the radiance everywhere. Theology beyond that, they're looking for answers to questions that most modern people aren't even asking, and they're missing what's right in front of them. Simply behold the radiance everywhere. You can put those 5 lines down as a guide for meditation and mindfulness and living in the world. I'm looking out the window, beholding the radiance everywhere, not just somewhere, not just in the street corner in Louisville where everybody's shining out like the sun. It is not just people shining like the sun. It's the bushes that look dead out my window, you see. So this, yeah, I think this is good enough to lead us into meditation. So thanks, John, for running the tape.